The term interests is a wide abstraction that covers the entire field of ethics. It includes the issues of man's values, his desires, his goals, and their actual achievement in reality. A man's interests depend on the kind of goals he chooses to pursue. His choice of goals depends on his desires. His desires depend on his values, and for a rational man, his values depend on the judgment of his mind. Desires, or feelings, or emotions, or wishes, or whims, are not tools of cognition. They are not a valid standard of value, nor a valid criterion of man's interests. The mere fact that a man desires something does not constitute a proof that the object of his desire is good, nor that its achievement is actually to his interest. To claim that a man's interests are sacrificed whenever a desire of his is frustrated is to hold a subjectivist view of man's values and interests, which means to believe that it is proper, moral, and possible for man to achieve his goals, regardless of whether they contradict the facts of reality or not, which means to hold an irrational or mystical view of existence, which means to deserve no further consideration. In choosing his goals, the specific values he seeks to gain and or keep, a rational man is guided by his thinking, by a process of reason, not by his feelings or desires. He does not regard desires as irreducible primaries, as the given, which he is destined irresistibly to pursue. He does not regard because I want it or because I feel like it as a sufficient cause and validation of his actions. He chooses and or identifies his desires by a process of reason, and he does not act to achieve a desire until and unless he is able rationally to validate it in the full context of his knowledge and of his other values and goals. He does not act until he is able to say, I want it because it is right. The law of identity, A, is a rational man's paramount consideration in the process of determining his interests. He knows that the contradictory is the impossible, that a contradiction cannot be achieved in reality, and that the attempt to achieve it can lead only to disaster and destruction. Therefore, he does not permit himself to hold contradictory values, to pursue contradictory goals, or to imagine that the pursuit of a contradiction can ever be to his interest. Only an irrationalist, or mystic, or subjectivist, in which category I place all those who regard faith, feelings, or desires as man's standard of value, exists in a perpetual conflict of interests. Not only do his alleged interests clash with those of other men, but they clash also with one another. No one finds it difficult to dismiss from philosophical consideration the problem of a man who wails that life entraps him in an irreconcilable conflict because he cannot eat his cake and have it too. That problem does not acquire intellectual validity by being expanded to involve more than cake, whether one expands it to the whole universe, as in the doctrines of existentialism, or only to a few random whims and evasions, as in most people's views of their interests. When a person reaches the stage of claiming that man's interests conflict with reality, the concept interests ceases to be meaningful, and his problem ceases to be philosophical and becomes psychological.